Well, hello and welcome to the Movie Paradise. I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár, and this is Movie Night Tonight. Every single week here, we watch a new film and discuss it in depth, with each month having a new theme. We're currently in the month of June, which is our month of gang movies, and the film we are discussing tonight is 1983's Scarface. I am joined with a panel. With me is Rob Giachinta.
What's going on?
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. We're on week 2 of gang movies. Last week we discussed The Godfather, which, if you haven't listened to that, you can check that out on the channel. But tonight we're talking about Scarface. So, Rob, first impressions of Scarface and how many times you've seen it?
I just watched it this morning for the first time. And my first impression, I'd say this is a movie that I think had a pretty much kind of run-of-the-mill story. I thought nothing really... I mean, granted, this came out a long time ago, but it was nothing I personally hadn't really seen before. Mm-hmm. But I'd say what makes this movie as good as I thought it was is the performances, especially by Al Pacino, I thought he was incredible as Tony
Montana,
whatever his name is. But yeah, very good performances and a lot of good tension scenes and stuff like that. And it was a movie that was like we've been saying, like 3 hours or almost long. But I'd say the difference between like this one and like some of the other ones that we've watched, this one had a much better pace, I thought, to it than. So I didn't mind sitting through the whole 3 hours. Granted, it's definitely a little too long.
Yeah.
But this one, out of the other ones, I'd say was faster and pace wise, and yeah. I liked it a little bit more because of that.
Yeah. So, going into my first impressions, and so a couple of years ago, I sat down to watch this movie, and I think I watched about an hour of it, and then I don't know what it was, but I just wasn't getting too into it. And at the time, I was rewatching Breaking Bad, and the whole time I was watching it, all I could think of was, "Damn, I really want to watch Breaking Bad right now." So I turned it off, and I watched Breaking Bad instead. So I saw the first hour or so. So this was my first time watching the whole movie, and I really like this movie a lot. I agree with like pretty much everything you said. I agree with. And I think last week when we were talking about Godfather, I made the point that usually these movies that are like over 2.5 hours to 3 hours, like they can usually have some stuff cut out of them. I'd agree. Some stuff could be cut out of this, but I do think the pace is better in this than it is in Godfather. I think it flows. 100%. I think it flows a lot better. And you're talking about roughly the same runtime, like maybe 5 minutes or so, give or take.
And it helps keep your attention during the whole movie. There was vaguely any scenes like where I was like drifting off. Like for the most part, I was like 100% awake.
Yeah, no, this I think this definitely has a better pace to it. It flows better. It kind of has more of a quickness to it, and I think maybe part of the reason why is The Godfather covers a long period of time, similar to how this kind of covers like from when Tony was younger to when he gets older. Like it covers a longer period of time. But for The Godfather, it's not as spaced out. Like you have a whole, like the first 40 minutes is that one wedding scene, and then it's kind of like clusters of parts in time, and then there's big time jumps. Whereas in this, it's kind of like an incremental growth in terms of how much time it covers.
I also found it to be a little bit more compelling because you're just focusing on your main character, your lead, and that's all you go through his entire journey. It's not kind of scattershot around with subplots and all that, which subplots are fine in some movies, but then in some other movies I think they can kind of bog a movie down. But in this one I think you just have one narrative the whole way through, and that's all you follow, and I enjoyed it.
That is a good point. There's only like there's a bunch of characters in the movie, but it really only follows a handful.
Is there a scene in the movie where he's not in it, really? I can't really think of one.
Maybe like one, but not one that I could think of like, off the top of my head.
Vaguely the one scene like where like his friend and his sister were in the car like driving, like even that was like cutting with him in another scene at the club. But
no, it's mostly just focusing on him and following him. And and not to make this just Godfather versus Scarface, but The Godfather doesn't have that. I mean, it has a bunch of characters that it follows, and it doesn't even have one definitive lead character. I mean, I'd say Al Pacino is the lead of that movie, but there are parts where it's heavily following Marlon Brando, where it's following Sonny, where it's following, all these other characters. Going on to your point that you made in your first impressions about Al Pacino in this movie, he's incredible.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
The fact that he was not nominated for an Oscar.
I know.
And the fact the movie wasn't nominated for any Oscars.
Brian De Palma has actually never been nominated for anything.
That's crazy.
And he's got a straight, I know he's a little hit or miss, I'd say.
Yeah.
If you look at his filmography. But Carrie, Untouchables, Carlito's Way. He has a lot of classics under his resume.
The first Mission Impossible isn't the greatest Mission Impossible, but he kicked off that franchise.
Agreed.
If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have any of the latter movies that we love so much.
Yeah, he's a director that deserves more credit than he does. Because if you look at some of his movies, we still talk about today, and then there's probably directors that have been nominated for Oscars that you wouldn't even know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the screenplay's written by Oliver Stone.
I didn't even know that until I saw it on the screen.
It's strange because when
you can feel it though in the movie.
See, I was gonna say I feel like when I watch this movie, it doesn't really seem like a movie, like an Oliver Stone.
Oh, really?
Touch to it. Well, I mean, I guess that's different because he's writing it and not directing it. But I find that interesting. He's a really interesting filmmaker. Yeah. Wall Street is great.
Yeah, that's a good one. I even liked his last movie, Snowden. I thought was pretty
Snowden
good.
Was good.
It's another movie called Savage. It was pretty good. I didn't like his rendition of the Doors. That's one of my favorite bands. I didn't find the movie that great, but that's just me.
And to be honest, I've never seen Platoon. I want to.
There's a lot of movies by him that I haven't seen. Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, stuff like that. I haven't seen any
JFK?
of those. Yeah, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah, but he's an interesting filmmaker. I think the film is very well written.
Yeah.
He does it, and especially since this is, I think he'd written 3 movies before this. Oh, really? So, in terms of his career, he was still relatively new. And as I understand it, he did a movie called The Hand right before this in 1981, and it bombed.
Oh, really?
And so it completely flopped. And so he was very apprehensive about, doing his next project. And then he gets brought on to do a remake of the 1932 Scarface.
Yeah.
And here we have it. So this is a very well-written movie, I think.
Yeah.
And even though he was kind of coming off of a flop and he was a little nervous about going into his next movie.
Yeah.
I
think this helped and they just ended up writing it and then, getting his teeth through that way. And think that who knows, if he doesn't write this movie, who knows where his career goes from there. He might not end up doing anything like Wall Street or any of those movies. Yeah.
And I think this is one of those, it was kind of, I don't think the reaction to it was mixed. But it wasn't necessarily revered like it is now, when it first came out.
I think this movie did most of its building up through home video and stuff like that. I feel like this movie became more popular years after it came out than the years it was out in Revel.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it was one of the for the time that came out, it was one of the edgiest movies when it came out. I remember reading the F-bomb count on it was 207, and that was a record. That was the record then when it came out in 1983, which Scorsese has since surpassed many times. And also there were multiple cuts of the film that they submitted it to the MPAA and it got an X rating. Oh, really? And then they're like, okay, you have to cut. So here's the story. So Brian De Palma has the film, and he submits his cut of the movie to the MPAA, and they give it an X rating, and the studio doesn't like that because they want it to get an R. Yeah. And so he cuts a little bit more, sends it back, gets another X rating, cuts a little bit more, sends it back, gets another X rating, and then the studio executives, the producers, and Brian De Palma sits down with the board of the MPAA, and they're like, okay, what do we have to do to get this to be an R? And they talked it through, and they eventually got that, the last cut that they submitted, they got that to be an R. And then Brian De Palma was like, so if that one's an R, and I barely cut anything out of it, then why can't the first one be an R? And the studio's like, doesn't matter, you release that cut. So Brian De Palma, just, without telling anyone, releases the original cut anyways because nobody could tell the difference.
How did he do that?
Well, nobody was going through to double check to make sure that the cut that was being released. So he told everyone it was the one that cut the R, but he released the original cut anyways, and it wasn't until years later that he told anyone that, oh yeah, the original cut that got that X rating, that's the one I put out.
Something like that wasn't going to be allowed, in like, or was going to get an X rating, and now you have something like John Wick, where like knives are going through people's heads, and like...
no. It's crazy because you watch today you watch something like Scarface, and you think,
that scene with the chainsaw was pretty violent, but other than that, it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I mean,
there's your occasional shootouts, but like,
compared to the stuff that we have today, it is very mild.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those kind of trailblazer films that, you have to have that hump that you get over to get to something like a John Wick today where violence in our culture is so normalized.
Yeah.
Which is scary, but also cool because now we get awesome movies like John Wick. But I just find that it's interesting how kind of revolutionary that was for 1983. So this is a remake of the 1932 Scarface, which you haven't seen that one, right?
No.
So I saw it in a film history class, and so I'd seen it before. I think I'd seen the first hour of this one, and then that's when I stopped watching it. And then like a year later is when I saw the original Scarface, and then now I'm seeing this one. The original, it's a very different movie. It's half the length because the first one's like an hour and a half, and then this one's 3 hours.
Proud of you guys.
Very interesting because I think the first one is about Italian immigrants.
Really?
Italian gangsters, and then I know Oliver Stone said when he was writing the screenplay for this one, he's not a fan of that original one. He was kind of tasked with doing a remake of Scarface, and so. One of the things he said when he was approaching the film was that he didn't want it to be Italian gangsters because he thought that whole thing had been done so many times.
Wish it had been.
Yeah, and so it's interesting. They're Cuban in this, and he takes something that's a current events at the time that you have the.
See, and that's what I think he does, what he does the best, is he takes political themes and stuff like that and spins them into his movies.
Exactly. And it works so well for this film because obviously we're on the younger side, so we weren't around and we don't have... I don't know too much about everything involving Cuban immigration at the time of when this movie takes place. So to see it through the lens of this film, and you can kind of draw comparisons to immigration that we have going on today. And it's sort of similar quote-unquote issues, but with different groups of people and coming from different countries. And it kind of puts into place the remake that they were going to do, directed by Anton Fuqua and starring Diego Luna.
Well, wasn't that supposed to be... Yeah, that was supposed to be Mexican, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. It was going to deal with Mexican immigration and everything. And so I think it's interesting having these movies, while they are about gangsters and crime and rising up the ranks, they also talk about deeper ideas and themes of the American dream and what does that really mean, because we all kind of have this glossy idea of what the American dream is, and then movies like this and I think any kind of even The Godfather, that deals with the American dream, that deals with Italian immigration, and having these getting into the murkier territory of the American dream and what does that actually entail. And really the American dream can only really be obtained through crime essentially, because the idea is rags to riches. You start at the bottom, you make your way up, but we live in a country where that's not truly possible unless if you're born into wealth or you obtain wealth. And you can't really work your way up or you win the lottery. You can't really work your way up from the bottom to the top on any sort of a legitimate
start
scale.
Your own company or something like that.
But even then, the amount of money it takes to start a company, and you don't make a profit for 5 years, and it's not until future generations that you can really have that wealth. So it's interesting to kind of explore those ideas through something like a Scarface, through something like The Godfather. I think when we're talking about gang movies and we're talking specifically about, these like Italian immigrants and Cuban immigrants and their relation to these kinds of stories, I think getting into those deeper themes, I think, is really interesting.
Now, one thing I meant to ask you is, so there was an original Scarface, and then now they have this one, and then they've talked about a remake. After watching this new one, do you even though the Al Pacino one is a remake, do you think they should make another one, or no? Because honestly, I think this one holds up to where I don't think you necessarily need another one. But I mean, I would see another one, but at the same time, I don't think it's one that I don't think is ripe for a remake, to be honest with you.
I think there is so looking at it in terms of immigration,
yeah,
I think there is a really strong place for a movie like that, because the Cuban immigration at the time of the 80s when this movie came out, that was a big issue of that time. And so you're kind of taking, as we were talking about with Oliver Stone, taking a political issue and putting it in terms of this film. And I think whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, we do have a very big political surrounding immigration right now. And I think doing a remake of Scarface and putting it in today's terms, I think it has benefit.
That I would be into. I don't necessarily think they should ever do a remake of the kind of Al Pacino, like that same storyline, all that kind of stuff. But I think if they were going to do a modern take on it, I'd be interested in it.
See, if they were to do it with Cuban immigration and set it in the 80s and do that, I don't think that would work. But if you're doing it today with a different ethnicity group, and you do a different story that's more tailored to today, like when they made the 83 Scarface, that's what they did for that time. If you do that for this time, I think that's where you have the value in a remake. But just rehashing that story, having it be Tony Montana, because the lead in the 32 Scarface wasn't Tony Montana. It was a completely different character. And so
you think they would make a new character, like new character name and everything?
I think it would just be a completely different story, completely different characters, but set around this idea of the basic idea of an immigrant comes to the United States and rises up the ranks. And then it would have the similar themes that the two films have, and it would deal with those kind of things, but it wouldn't necessarily be the same characters.
That'd be cool.
Now, I think this 83 Scarface, it always makes me laugh whenever people like rebel against remakes and reboots, and they're like, it always ruins the original, blah, 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 because there's so many movies that people don't normally realize are remakes. The Thing. There's so many movies that we hold to be the classics today that are remakes themselves. The Wizard of Oz is a remake.
Really?
There were more Wizard of Oz movies.
I know it was based on a book, right?
Yes. So. And there was a Wizard of Oz silent film from like 1922 before you get the one that everybody knows today. So, and this is kind of a side point, but have you heard about the Indian remake of The Office?
No.
So in India, they're remaking The Office.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing all of these people going, this is so stupid. Why are they remaking The Office? Blah, blah. I'm like, you do realize that The Office that you love is itself a remake.
No. No way.
Yeah, it's
I don't want to believe it.
It's so funny to me when people just get upset.
Not my Michael Scott.
It's funny to me when people get so up in arms about remakes, because if there were no remakes ever, a lot of the movies that you love would not exist.
In my opinion, I think things should be remade if they can improve upon the movies before. The ones that I don't like is movies that are like just remade that I think the movie still stands up as my problem. Or like just like I don't think we ever really need to see a remake of like The Godfather, do you?
No.
I don't know. Like
See,
I Rocky think, or anything. I think those movies still hold up today. But a movie like obviously the X-Men movies, like those aren't going to hold up, and those will be rebooted from time in, time out. stuff like that. Or even, I think Back to the Future could be primed for a reboot one day as well. Because I think once those movies age even more, I know the stories themselves will hold up, but I think that the technology, I think, just needs to be improved on in those movies.
Yeah. I think, to me, it's kind of two separate things in my head of, like, when I hear a remake is coming out, part of me is thinking, does this need to be remade? But that doesn't necessarily in my head correlate with, well, they shouldn't remake it.
Yeah.
Because
there's nothing that they shouldn't ever remake, I don't necessarily think.
Not everything needs a remake.
Yes, but there's just some things that I think deserved a remake more than others, and some that I think you shouldn't really touch unless, like, you have, like, a great idea for it or something.
Exactly. Like, there are movies like...
If you think you can redo The Godfather, make it even better than the original Godfather, then you know what? Then go for it. But if you're just going to make something that's just like, it
has the Godfather name.
Like, just a cash grab, then why are you doing it?
Yeah. I get that. And there are definitely movies that, like, remakes that have come out that you're like, okay, they didn't really need
to do... Ghostbusters, I thought they could have just continued that movie like they're doing now. I think they've smartened up. That movie, it felt like, it's just like, now we have women, which is awesome that they put women in it, but I felt like it was more just like a shtick to try to just sell tickets.
That was more of a
to
gimmick.
Make a movie. I don't know, that's my opinion.
Yeah. I think there are movies that come out, remakes that come out, they're like, that didn't really need to be remade.
No.
But any remake that comes out, I'm going to take that remake on its own basis. And we probably, maybe not Scarface because there's such a big time difference between them, but take The Thing.
Yeah.
When John Carpenter's The Thing was coming out in 1982, there were probably people at the time thinking, why are you remaking The Thing? The one that came out like in the 50s, that was a good movie. You don't need to remake that. Or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. When that's coming out in the 70s, people are probably thinking, why are you remaking this? The one in the 50s is so good, which the one in the 50s is good. They're both good. But, there's all these... What I object to are people who kind of have a hardened rule, all remakes are bad. Like, anytime that you're remaking a movie, it's bad. And I just object to, because we've seen so many remakes that surpass the original, and that we hold to be, like, the best. Like The Fly. So, The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. Everyone holds that to be a great one. That's a remake of one from, like, the 50s. Yep. There's so many remakes, and I think... there are definitely movies that get remakes that don't need remakes.
Yep.
But just take those movies at their own value.
And another thing with the remakes is, I think what makes a great remake is when they actually create almost new stories and new characters. Like when they created Tony Montana. I hate like a movie like when they remade Psycho with Vince Vaughn, and you should never pretty much reshoot a whole movie, because that's stupid. That's just we want to see something a little bit different with the same vibe we're used to from the original.
Yeah, I think all remakes are okay. Inherently, I think remakes are okay. But I think what makes a remake interesting is when you take something and you put it in different contexts, in different terms, and you do something different. And that's why, if you are doing The Godfather, don't just remake The Godfather. Do something different with it.
I know this started off as a television show, but if you look at something like 21 Jump Street, that was kind of like a serious, kind of show. And when they made the movie, they kind of made a satirical kind of version of it, and it improved upon it. It was different from the show, but it was essentially like a retelling or a remake of that show. Yeah, which was cool.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if you're just remaking a movie to have that title on the poster and you just swapping out actors, what's the point? But if you're doing something different with it, if you're just doing Jaws and just putting in new actors into those roles,
Jason Statham.
Yeah, so that's kind of a digression on remakes, but I think it's important for this because I think people lose sight of that. Not all remakes are bad.
Whoever watches, there's probably someone who might watch this and might not even known this was a remake.
Exactly. So. And in 30, 40 years,
Yeah.
someone watches the remake of Point Break, not knowing there was a Keanu Reeves one in the 90s.
I don't know if anybody's ever going to watch it.
I know, but that's just an example.
One that I think was
that was one where you're just swapping
also,
out
I
the actors.
think this should be somewhat of a certain amount of time in between remakes, too. You shouldn't just remake something like 5 years later, I don't think.
What I'm more interested... I agree with that. I'm more interested, instead of remaking movies that are popular and everyone loves, remake movies that had great ideas but were shitty movies. Movies that you watch, you're like, that's a really cool idea, or they do something really interesting with it, but it didn't work. Let's remake that, take that idea that could have been really good, and actually make it good. That's what I want to see.
I agree.
Because I've seen so many
But they
movies.
never want to do that, because they're like, oh, well, that movie failed. Why are we going to do it again?
Because it failed because you didn't do it right.
Yeah.
You could take... That's what I'm interested in. And that's what I wish more studios and filmmakers did that. Because I think that's a gold mine. Yeah. Looking at all the movies that had good ideas but just didn't work. Yeah. Take those ideas and make them work. I don't know.
Pretty easy money.
Literally. But I don't know. That seems like common sense to me, and I wish more people did that. But going back to Scarface.
I was going to ask, what if they were to say they were having a Scarface today, and it was like a Cuban man, and they casted an American like Al Pacino, do you think there would be an outrage, probably?
I don't know. Maybe.
Do you think that he would even be cast today? Because I think he probably wouldn't be.
No, he probably wouldn't be cast today. Yeah, I think those are two separate things. Would he have been cast today if they were making that today? No. And honestly, I would say if you're making it today, don't cast him. Yeah. Cast a Cuban actor.
I agree.
And I think, and you might say, but you would be losing out on the performance of Al Pacino. Yes, but something like that works better for 1983 than it does today.
I think, granted, he did kind of look like he was Cuban in the movie. They did it worked well.
But I think this is something that happened all the time for like the past 80, 90 years of cinema that we're hopefully starting to learn
I would never hold it against any of the filmmakers or anything like that. But I mean, everybody in the... Like, his sister was an American actress. Pretty sure his friend was an American actress.
I think generally, I think it's a good rule of thumb, whatever ethnicity your character is, cast an actor of that, because otherwise, like, it's not like there aren't people of that ethnicity who are good actors, who are actors. Like,
and in this day and age, like, the movie star really doesn't sell your movie anymore. Yeah. So it shouldn't even really matter. And it's more about the premise and the trailer. And honestly, I mean, you could honestly say that directors are a bigger name than some actors now. I feel like more people would go out to go see a Christopher Nolan movie than just like a Will Smith movie. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think one of the worst cases of... Do you remember Aloha? When Emma Stone was playing an Asian character?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know that till like they reported it.
What the hell? Like, I don't know. That stuff just like when
that's
stuff
Cameron
like that.
Crowe too.
Yeah, stuff like that. Just like there's no excuse for that. There's absolutely no excuse for something like that.
But then there's situations like Scarlett Johansson with Ghost in the Shell, in which, I think that movie did as much money as it did just because of her in the movie. You know what I mean? And like, I feel like she's one of those actors that actually can kind of like drive an audience to her. Yeah. Still left. Like you see something like Lucy, like who wanted to see that? And
that's why I think Black Widow will probably be a pretty big hit.
I think so.
And I think that, depending upon the trailers, depending upon the buzz towards it, and depending upon how good the movie is, that could be $1 billion movie.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, but I think yes, I agree with the notion that actors don't have the same pull that they do. But I do think there are some actors, like The Rock.
The Rock, yeah.
There are definitely...
Even, I would want to say Tom Cruise, but not all of his movies do. But, like, at least, like, the Mission Impossible ones. I think if there was another actor in the Mission Impossible movies, I don't know if they'd do as well.
Well, they would also be completely different because you wouldn't necessarily have someone as crazy as Tom Cruise doing all those stunts, which is a big draw for those movies. But yeah, I agree. If they were to remake... and it would be the same thing if they were doing a Scarface today about Mexican immigrant and they cast a white person, that would be wrong. That would get outrage.
I don't think that would go over well.
No, not at all. But I mean, it's the same.
Who would they cast? Like Will Ferrell?
Will Ferrell. Hey, I'm
Adam
Scarface.
Sandler.
Michael Scott. Prison Mike. Now I just want to see a Scarface movie with Prison Mike.
That'd be awesome. Can I tell you what? Michelle Pfeiffer was in this movie. I honestly thought she was kind of... I mean, I know this was probably one of her earlier movies, but like she's an excellent actress, and I thought she was given like nothing in this movie. For the most part.
That's the thing. I thought...
She was just kind of like a whiny little jerk and smoking crack all day.
Well, so I thought for how much time she had in the movie, I thought she was fine. She was good. Yeah. She didn't have that much to do.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing, was that she was just kind of there. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that was a really missed opportunity.
Yeah. Was she like? Was that one of her first ever movies back then?
I would assume
Batman came out after that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Batman Returns was 92.
Yeah.
So I think that was one of her earlier. I don't know for sure, but I think that was one of her earlier roles.
I'd say the actress who played his sister was really good in the movie.
Yeah, that was
she had a lot. That scene at the end of the movie where she was like coming at him and like she was like shooting at him. Yeah. I thought that was like, at first I thought it was like a dream. To be honest.
Me too. I thought that was some sort of like coke-induced hallucination.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah,
but then like she
was because it was all like sexual, and then I was like, okay, so
this is kind of weird.
Is this like getting into like a deeper phase?
Because I was like, to be honest, like when he first like saw her again and he was hugging her, it was kind of rubbing me the wrong way, like the way he was looking at her.
I think part of that, I think that was part of the reason why he was so like brutally protective of her. Was I think there was part of there was an attraction there.
Yeah.
And they had said like that he had been gone for like 5 years. There was a significant age difference between them.
Yeah.
I think there might have been something there. I don't think he ever would have acted on it, but I think there was something there. Yeah, I think going back to Michelle Pfeiffer, I wish her character had more to do because she was, and I think she was just kind of there more to kind of point to more of who Tony Montana is.
Skimpy dresses.
Yeah. That scene, so that whole scene when they're in the restaurant.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
And then he breaks off his whole monologue where he's talking about, I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm here is so that you guys can think you're the good guy. And like that whole thing, that was fantastic. Like I was watching that, I was like trying in my head to memorize every line of what he was saying because I was like, this is so well written. There's so many just great scenes in this movie.
Another thing I liked about I don't know if I necessarily liked it or just kind of like just kind of makes you mad a little bit is like you kind of like root for this guy in the beginning of the movie throughout it. Like I kind of want to like
Tony Montana.
I know he's doing bad things, but I still like am like rooting for him to like keep working hard and like get to the top. But then once he gets to the top, he is like an absolute asshole.
Yeah.
And so like, and then it does diminish his likability towards like the end. Like once he died, like I was kind of like good riddance at that point.
Well, I think he was unabashedly the villain throughout the whole movie, and I think that's what makes I always like movies that kind of tell the story of twisted characters. And like even though he's clearly the villain, like similar to what I was talking about with The Godfather, when you have the scene when Vito Corleone dies and it's him playing with his grandson, and that kind of shows the humanity of his character. We also have similar moments with Tony Montana where you kind of see more of a humanity to him. Not enough to justify anything.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't really see much, to be honest
with you. There was the whole part where he refused to kill the guy. Yeah, because his wife and kids were in there. Scene. And that was more just kind of like, I think that kind of shows what his code is.
Yeah.
Like, he only kills people who mess with him or he has directly been ordered to kill. He doesn't just needlessly kill people. Yeah. Which, I mean, he's still killing people. But, I mean, he's not a savage animal, like just doing whatever impulse he has. Like he has a code to him. He has sort of a structure.
Because I'd say Al Pacino's character from The Godfather would have just killed all those people. To be honest with you,
yeah,
I think
Al Pacino wouldn't have really. Oh, that Al Pacino wouldn't have cared. This Al Pacino does care. Yeah, I think there were moments where not enough to like justify him or anything like that, but more to show that he isn't completely off the deep end. He's just more of a selfish person who is all about money, all about power. Mm-hmm. And I think as soon and I think this plays into that theme of the American Dream, is that from the beginning he keeps reiterating, you only get respect. What does he say? Like, you have to get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women.
Yep.
And you kind of see that's his mentality. That's how he approaches this. That's how he views things, is that for him to get the respect that he deserves and to make it in his eyes, he has to get the money and he's got to get the power. And that's what he does.
Yeah.
And he reaches the top, and then I think he realizes that once he's at the top, where else is there for him to go but down?
Yeah.
And then it all comes crashing down because he fucks over the one guy who says, "Don't fuck me over." And then,
that other.
Souza? Yeah. Screws him over, and then that's his downfall.
Yeah. And then also, like, freaking kills his, like, best friend.
Yeah.
Because he was freaking dating his sister or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he...
At the same time, like, if I was that friend, I would have never... Even if, like, I liked that girl, I still never would have did it. Like, that guy was fucking nut. Like, he should have... He would have...
Well, they shouldn't have
known that, like, he was going to kill...
They shouldn't have surprised him with the marriage.
Yeah.
That was stupid. They should have given, like, some inkling. Like, they should have both sat down with him and said, "Hey, look, this is going on." Like, they should have done
Also,
like
we hadn't seen that guy in the movie for a little bit, and then, like, once, like, it was, like, reported that the sister had left and gone to a house, like, I was like, oh, she's obviously going to be with that guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's dead. And then,
Yeah. But there's so many great scenes in this movie. Like, I was talking about the scene in the dining room. That whole scene where, in the very beginning, with the chainsaw and they try to get the coke, that whole scene's awesome.
That was crazy.
That's probably one of the most intense scenes. And then the whole ending, the whole climax of the movie, where it's the whole shootout. "Say hello to my little friend!" Boom! Like, classic. Everyone knows that line. Like, there's so many great scenes in this movie.
Who is that guy, though, like, with the sunglasses? Like, the way, like, the camera was, like, panning on him, I thought, like, we were supposed to, like, know who that was for whatever reason.
I don't know. Well, so part of me was wondering, I was waiting for him to like, take off the glass and reveal that it was Souza or something, but they never did. So I don't know if he was supposed to be someone important.
Maybe he was supposed to be, like, the devil.
I don't know.
Ooh.
Who knows? Yeah. So going into final thoughts, I think that Scarface is a really good movie. I think it has for a 3-hour movie, or just under 3 hours, I think it has a very good pace to it. Like we said, I think better pace than The Godfather. I think there are some excellent scenes in this movie. Great scenes that build tension. Intense scenes that really show how vicious and savage these characters can be. I think Al Pacino gives probably the best performance I've seen from Al Pacino.
Yeah, man, I haven't seen a ton of his movies.
Yeah.
He was great in Insomnia and also Godfather, but I can't think of another movie.
I think from the Al Pacino movies I've seen,
yep,
I think this is my favorite performance. And it still baffles me that this movie, one, that he wasn't nominated for any, that he wasn't nominated for Best Lead Actor for this, or that I wasn't nominated for any Oscars. Because after I watched the movie, I went on to IMDb, and I was like, and I saw one, Al Pacino won one Oscar. I'm like thinking, okay, Scarface, and I click on it, and I was like, wait, where is he?
Scent of a Woman.
Yeah. Where is his nomination? And I went to Scarface and saw it wasn't nominated for anything. It got 3 Golden Globe nominations. It's like, wow.
Al Pacino's one of those actors where, like, I think he kind of fell into the, like, he never, like, won, and then finally they kind of just gave him one for a movie that probably wasn't as good as all the other ones. But it happens. It happened with Denzel Washington, too, I think.
Yeah. Kind of happened with, well, I mean, The Departed is great, but Martin Scorsese's
that's not the
win.
Best movie
Martin Scorsese's win for The Departed was kind of, okay, this and all the other ones.
Same with maybe Leonardo DiCaprio as well.
Yeah, for The Revenant. Yeah, they do that sometimes. Yeah. But
that's why I'm still shocked that Glenn Close didn't win last year. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah. A different discussion for a different day.
Yep. But great scenes, great performances, good pace to this film, some intense sequences. I think it has some really cool themes that it explores. I really like this movie a lot. Final thoughts?
Like I said in the beginning, this movie basically it's nothing you haven't seen before, and in terms of its actual like story, it's kind of just like the rise and fall of a drug lord almost. Mm-hmm. But the performances and the dialogue is what really like increase this movie, make it a really good movie in my opinion. And this now, unlike when I said I don't think I'd ever really need to watch The Godfather again, this is a movie I wouldn't mind watching again because I found it to be very entertaining. And that, hey, I mean, everybody looks for something different in film, but what I look for the most is entertainment value.
Yeah.
And I think this has it, and I was very entertained by it pretty much all the way through. And again, Al Pacino definitely deserves some more recognition for this than he did. Yeah. But, I mean, what do you think
kind of, like, after the fact, he's definitely, well, like, people revere this as one of his best performances.
I'd have to look at what was nominated that year or whatever, but I don't know. I think he should have got one.
Yeah.
But if I had to give it a grade, I think I'd give it 4.1.
4.1? Nice. 5. I think I'm giving it I was debating between 4.2 and 3. I forget. I wrote it down what I gave it in my notes. I went with a 4.2.
Ooh.
So
how about 2.5?
I don't like to do that. Sometimes I know. So, like occasionally I'll do it, but I feel like sometimes it's a cop out. But
give it that extra 0.5.
Nah, I'm just gonna go 4.2. I'm going to give Scarface a 4.2. Yeah. Well, that has been our discussion of 1983's Scarface. Next week, we are watching and discussing the next film. We are talking about 1990's Goodfellas.
One of my favorites.
Yes, this is Scorsese. So this is our
first... This is probably his best movie.
So this is our first of 2 Scorsese movies.
Yep.
Because we have another Scorsese movie coming a little bit later in the month. I've seen Goodfellas once before. I saw it once before and I liked it, but I didn't get by into all the hoopla about it.
I think you gotta watch it.
So I'm excited to watch it again and look at it through new eyes.
I've seen that. Oh my! That movie's been playing in my house since I was a baby.
Since you were a baby, you've been watching Goodfellas?
For better or for worse, that movie's been on my TV way too many times.
Yeah. So that will be an interesting discussion. So make sure to tune in next Saturday when our discussion of Goodfellas drops. Well, once again, I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár. Thank you so much for listening. I'd like to thank Rob Giachinta for joining me for this discussion.
Hey, I mean, what else would I rather be doing on a Saturday afternoon?
No, I have no idea. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content, and be sure to follow us on all of our various social medias at Movie Night TNT. That's Movie Night TNT. There you can get our links to our Spotify, to our YouTube, to our iTunes, and all new episodes of Movie Night Tonight drop on Saturdays, and you can view all of our previous episodes as well. So until our discussion of Goodfellas next week, thanks for listening.